Welcome to Impact Under the Big Sky, Stories of Philanthropy in Montana. This podcast is brought to you by the Montana Community Foundation, where our mission is to cultivate a culture of giving so Montana communities can flourish. Join us as we share inspiring stories of generosity, innovation, and impact from across the Treasure State. From rural towns to bustling cities, we'll explore how philanthropy is shaping Montana's future. One gift, one grant, and one story at a time.
Welcome to Impact Under the Big Sky, Stories of Philanthropy in Montana. I'm your host, Heather Ohs, a gift and estate officer with the Montana Community Foundation, and I am overjoyed to introduce our guest today, Nick Dietzen. He is a familiar face to some, but Nick, in this role, you are the head of the Montana State Golf Association, correct?
I am executive director, and we're thrilled to be spending time with you to talk about MCF and the Montana State Golf Association.
Yeah, and I am so grateful for you because I recognize this is the time when people want to be golfing, right?
Absolutely. We are full swing as it goes, and it's exactly. So we're thrilled to have golf season back. There's a lot of happy people who were, a lot of how did you winter is what I hear on the golf courses.
Oh, yeah.
People are missing out. So.
Totally. Although I feel like golf went into a very long and beautiful fall. Like I do remember we had a great fall, but now we're off to this really wet and rainy start. But I think we're going to have green greens. Would that be?
I think it's great for Montana in so many different regards. Obviously the precipitation, the moisture. So courses are in great shape in general. So we're happy and thankful for that.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give a full disclosure here. I am not a golfer. I would love to be one. I have a lot of family and friends in my life that golf, but I find this fascinating, right? That golf is such a connector and a fabric of Montana and the people. And so why don't you share with us really the mission and what it is your association does?
So we recently, strategic planning, went through discussing because the community aspect is part, Montana and all places have their own communities at the local level in the golf world, not unlike just the way Montana is. So our mission is to serve and to connect the Montana golf community. So that's all the small towns, courses, 9-holers that play a role in their local communities. It's the 18-hole facilities, some of the bigger areas. It's the high schools, it's the colleges. We're trying to get everyone together so that information can be shared and so that more people like you who might be curious and wanting to get into it have resources and understanding about what's available in their neck of the woods and beyond.
I love that. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about how I can get involved in others
Absolutely.
At the end. But so Nick, you used to actually be kind of in my seat. You were a gift and estate planning officer with MCF. And now you're over here. So what led you and kind of what's your background with golf that positioned you to take this challenge on?
Yeah, well, first I had a great 4 years at the Montana Community Foundation, traveled around lots of places. I was thinking back to a colleague of mine at the time, Jennifer Gursky, and our first visit with a local community foundation was in Laurel, and it was at Laurel Golf Club.
Sure.
So it was kind of that whole, there's always a component of golf as a through line for a lot of my life. Sure. And even just getting out there, playing golf in Forsyth with their local community foundation, chair, Daryl Grogan, a lot of great memories, both just with philanthropy and also with golf being intertwined in a lot of that. So my background a little bit as it pertains to golf and such is that I grew up, my dad was a high school golf coach. Okay. So he actually was, from literally the time I was born, which was in April, he was coaching golf. And I started to go to the tournaments and help out. I started kind of doing some impromptu scoring. I was good at arithmetic.
Yeah, okay.
So I was useful at the scoreboard to be able to check addition and do some things like that. So that was my original, kind of with the golf tournament side. Yeah. Obviously played, met a ton of my friends at a younger age through golf, got them into golf, still friends to this day, try to, get out and do that. But ultimately, I worked in, combinations of journalism, then into philanthropy, sports. Those have been the main areas. I started in 2012. I was in Minnesota for a year with the PJ Boatwright Golf Internship. It's a USGA grant-funded program that exists in all the states, and it's an introduction to golf administration. So I did a year just to change things up, and it was an awesome opportunity. Got to learn all the different facets.
Sure.
Then I moved back to Montana, and we had a much smaller association, and I had the good fortune that my predecessor, Jim Opitz, introduced me to, would you like to help out? Could you help with the newsletter? So I started in that area.
Using your journalism experience.
Kept it going, do some writing, go to, at the time it was only a couple tournaments. So that was just a moonlighting sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then obviously the philanthropy side, you mentioned the community foundation. Sure. At an endowment, started re-energized around golf, and it just had always been a part of my life. And then the opportunity became available in end of 2021, and I applied for the role and been there ever since.
And there you are, yeah. So something you touched on, the endowment, Montana Community Foundation holds an endowment in partnership with you all, and how has that been? You're starting to re-energize that. And what does that look like for the folks that want to support you?
Yeah. So we're a membership organization, also a 501c3, trying to tell the story a lot more about a lot of the things that we do besides the very in the weeds, nuanced golf nerdiness that exists, because we do a lot of that. And tournaments, of course, are the thing people are probably most familiar with what we do. But we do a lot of grant making. We do scholarship program for graduating seniors. We've supported the colleges with their programs through grants. We other partner organizations, some continuing ed opportunities for them. So we do a substantial amount of check writing and philanthropic work, but we have it is.
Yeah, because I'm really thinking of it more of folks supporting you, but they do, and then in return, you're multiplying that impact out to, like you said, whether it be high schools, colleges, communities, really to increase the game of golf.
Yeah, we want it to be healthy for years to come, which is right hand in glove with the work at the Community Foundation and endowments. But we haven't had really the fundraising and philanthropy side ethic in the MSGA historically about fundraising. We did our first appeal last year, got some generous donations, and we're trying to, again, articulate what we do, because a lot of our members, they pay a membership fee and they get some benefits for that, and they may think, well, that's that's where it begins and ends. But why are they asking potentially for some more support? So we want to tell folks why and be able to give a better understanding of what we're trying to not only grow with these programs, but also sustain them.
Yeah. Sustainability is key. I mean, I think we're looking at that across all spectrums of the nonprofit and service industry right now. And how do we introduce the game to new people? I think cost is always a concern for families, right? Like if I get my kid introduced, whether it be to skiing or golf, there's this expense associated with it. So you're saying that, for some, there's opportunities for scholarships to make this more affordable?
It's a multi-pronged piece, and it's one of the double-edged swords, essentially, of the popularity right now. Golf is very popular. It's probably getting close, if not at an all-time high for, I think, awareness and golf being cool and people getting into it from other places that they may not have in the past.
Right.
And COVID was a huge piece of that. It was an area where people were able to recreate, and there were the fact that you're social distancing, that was the true sense of the word. You were distanced and still being social.
Still in a community, doing things.
And I did it, during COVID. Yeah. I was out of state at the time, but it was a big piece of me being working from home and not being able to do the work that I had planned to do. That was one of my only places to find a little bit of social and some community and keep my normal, some of the parts in a very abnormal time.
Yeah.
So a lot of people came back to the game that maybe had left, or they tried it for the first time.
Yeah.
And now we see this huge, influx of golfers.
Yes.
It's a great problem to have, but courses are availability and accessibility is at a premium.
I'm sure.
And it isn't insignificant, some of those financial barriers. So we have some programs. We partner with a nationwide organization. It's actually international at this point. It's called Youth on Course.
Okay.
And so we've got 20 plus courses out of our 96 facilities in which any junior, they can sign up. And if they've got a membership with Youth on Course, not only in Montana, but then beyond, $5 green fee.
What?
For any of the juniors. Yeah.
Right there. That's the nugget from the, say that one more time.
Yeah. So Youth on Course, you go to our website, you'll see the list of 20 plus courses. We're trying to get more online. We've got 96 total courses.
Okay.
And we want to get as many on board. It might be a window of like a certain day or after a certain time. But I have so many friends with young children right now, to get into any activity for $5 is an incredible deal.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Counter to what you'd think for golf.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up. And then I think you touched on something. We look for things we can do. I know as a mom, things we can do as a family.
Yeah.
And for my family, it's been skiing. But our oldest daughter is starting to segue into interest in golf because her boyfriend is a golfer, and he just took 10th in Class B this past weekend. And so because she's been exposed to it, so now our family is looking at like as a family. And again, knowing that there's those options for those reduced fees makes it something obtainable.
Yeah. And we, not only with that, we provide a subsidy as well to the courses to try to make it advantageous for them to consider it. And I think at getting access to the course, like there's instruction. It's the on-ramp, not unlike skiing, is
it's technical.
It's tough. And it can be imposing to a lot of, like, they can be concerned. And, I think there's a whole culture of almost negativity around I'm not good, or I'd like to, but
do I belong here? Like
I can't.
Yeah, like
I'm afraid of it, or like I had a bad experience once, and that's understandable. And if you go out and you haven't had some opportunities to hit on the driving range, and you go out onto a busy course. I always say it's like, driving for the first time on a freeway. It's too much to handle. And people are like, I'm
never doing that again. I'm putting away my clubs. Yeah. I think you bring up a good point. Like, you kind of phase into this. It is a technical sport. And if you're going to go out and think you're going to be great the first time, those expectations are going to quickly, be disappointing. So I think.
And stressful. You don't want to, it's not something you want to do if you don't have a good experience at the start.
Right.
So we're trying to do as much as we can to not only serve the avid golfers, but then those next generations and the newcomers, and especially like in the areas of juniors and women's golf, those are areas that are huge growth opportunities currently. I mean, they're already growing. We just want to make sure that we look into opportunities that are beyond what we're known for, which is a lot of the competitive tournament style stuff, because your daughter isn't probably going to want to start there, and we don't want to miss her, and neither do the local course.
Yeah. And I think like when you look at the runway of golf, some sports, it's like if you don't start by the time you're 10, you kind of peak and then you're done. But golf is a lifelong sport.
It is.
This is something you can do, while you're young, a junior, but then you have those college moments, family, and then into retirement. And while you're working in those years, so much happens on a golf course.
Yeah. And that was a thing that was articulated to me at a young age by my father about the lifelong sport. And that was like kind of a gift in the sense that like may not be what you want to do when you're younger, even though I did. It was like you'll always kind of have this as a thing that you can do. And the relationships that are forged there, that's the piece that we do a senior tour where it's these series of one day just shotgun events. So you get into the cart and then you go out on the different holes. Like a lot of people are familiar with like a charity scramble, but it's these seniors and they're coming from all different places, and it's an opportunity for them to meet new friends and see new courses. And hopefully the goal was to get out and travel Montana for those who had the ability, like the time, the resources. Yeah. And then the clubs would have some new folks come into theirs on like a weekday. So we've got those going. We've got one tomorrow. It's been gaining in popularity, and the enthusiasm and just that kind of joy. And, and that whether it's the juniors playing and trying to meet friends that way, that we all need more connections and community, right?
Yeah, especially in a world where it seems like so much is happening online.
Yeah.
Like this is really a healthy outlet where you're doing life together on these courses and you see familiar faces over and over. And I think that's something that's a really positive, healthy thing to strive for.
Being active and, you know, like having things to look forward to. It's always I think it's huge for everyone. So we've got a lot of that on the programming side, you know, in addition to what we're doing on the philanthropy side. We're trying to, you know, build those communities and there's a lot of kind of the ecosystem of golf in the sense that we rely on a lot of volunteers for a lot of our events.
Oh, sure.
And more than not, it's a lot of that senior population who has the time and the want to give back.
Yep.
They've been either lifelong golfers or they're just interested
and they're familiar
around
with the culture, so it feels really warm and welcoming.
And that's fun. I kind of think back to some of the, you know, imagery at the community foundation of kind of the hand in hand of different generations. And as you mentioned, the social piece and the family piece is a lot. When you talk to people about how they got into golf, you hear a lot of grandparent stories.
Right.
It was my grandfather or my grandma who got me out to the course. And like, those are unique situations. You don't hear that as much on like certain other activities.
Right. Other activities, they've either retired and hung up like, you know, their ultra marathon cleats or basketball because of that. But here
no more skateboarding.
No more skateboarding. No more hockey. Like grandpa's done with that. So you're right. This is really a chance for families and that next generation and legacy to be woven through. So something you touched on, I'm thinking about how there's like tours across Montana where people do like brewery tours or burger tours. Or like, is there a punch card with golf where people are like, I've been to, you know, 80 courses, or do people try to work that all in? Is that like...
It's a great, hopefully, you know, teaser into something that did exist and it has essentially gone away. And so we have been talking to courses and trying to get to a spot to try to fill that gap because it was very popular.
I can imagine.
And it's especially beneficial to folks realizing where some of these different courses are. So you might be traveling for something and, you know, it's a great reason to stop for
maybe stay another night, or just like you said, stop and get out and play and just to go, I didn't realize it was in this community. And then you see the beautiful course.
You're going to, you know, North Dakota for the family reunion and you're like, I'm stopping in Miles City. They have a great 9-hole facility there. I like play there. Maybe we go to Glendive. Maybe
stretch our legs, get back on the road.
Right. And just I've always been struck by the fact that when you are in new places and you're kind of gawking around at the street signs and different things, they're really the signage is really apparent that there's a golf course nearby. They've got those signs like now when you're looking for it.
I'm gonna every time because I travel so many miles, like you know, I'll be like, oh, Nick Dietzen, there's that golf course.
That's right. That was great.
It'll be top of the mind awareness.
That'll be my legacy. You'll see that and you'll be like, oh yeah, Nick was talking about this.
I'll be like, Nick taught me this. We'll be on the lookout for that.
Old Aldian Townsend. That's right there.
Okay, so 1917, I think that's the inception.
Right.
I mean, you guys are over 100 years old.
We are,
So much has probably changed, and yet a lot stayed the same.
Yeah, it's the history of the Golf Association, and one thing that I really find particularly I like, even though I would by no means say that it was necessarily as like progressive in the time, but both the women's amateur and the men's amateur started that year, and like that's a unique situation. And there's a great history of women's golf that spans back just as long. And you know, from the piece, one thing that I ran into a little before I had started in my full-time job, because we had a merger. There was a women's association and there was a senior association. So we had three separate groups at one point in time.
Yeah.
Now we're all merged together as one
like
family.
A little family.
Yeah. But there was this kind of context around it's the men's state golf association. It was like, it wasn't, but there was a women's golf association. So the idea that, and without question, there were a lot of barriers, and women could only play on certain days and things like that.
Sure.
But I'm proud that the association, you know, and there's so much collaboration around both the history of the competitive side. They brought the scholarship to the association, which was a program of the women. Yep.
And seems like something women historically do.
100%. And we have, awesome board and volunteerism around these programs that they're very appreciative of. So I can't say enough about the leadership side and the fact that I'm often, encouraging some of the younger gals to kind of like, you got to hear some of the stories and not take for granted that like a lot of these opportunities, like they were the ones who really, pushed through so that you have these opportunities, and we're real, they laid the groundwork for the success that we see. And I mean, there's some really great female golfers, not just on the competitive side, but also just the fact that like you go to Cottonwood Hills in Bozeman, their women's league, like if you aren't signing up, you're not getting in, kind of, it's that like sold out sort of like piece. And that is just not something that existed a long time ago.
Yeah. So there's a big demand. I know I was down in Scottsdale, I think 2 years ago over spring break, and the house we were staying at, the LPGA tour came by. And is it Nelly Cord?
Yeah, Nelly Corda, yeah.
Yeah, I got to see her. Like, absolutely. I mean, it literally was like 8 feet from her at this house, and watching my girls and the other kids at the house, seeing the women and seeing the crowds move, and just you're not loud because you have to be quiet in golf, but you could feel the energy. And I think the coverage even that we're seeing when you're in a sports bar and the following behind that is just pretty phenomenal for me as a young woman growing up and knowing I knew all the men's names in golf, but rarely could I pick a woman's name out. And now I think it's top of the mind awareness. Our girls even know who the good golfers are. And I think that's pretty incredible.
Well, and one neat thing that was took place 2022, so it was my first year, and Green Meadow here in Helena hosted the Girls Juniors America Cup, and it was the best of the best from about 14 different states and areas of junior amateur players, teams of 4. Montana fielded team, as did all these other ones, and the winner is right now one of the top 2 amateur players in the U.S. right now, Jasmine Koo, and she played on the Curtis Cup team. And so our people in Montana who came, and a lot of our volunteers in Helena got to firsthand
see her
these
win
players. And there's a gal from Idaho who plays for Nebraska, and they got to see just how good the talent is. And
I have goosebumps.
And Mary volunteered for that. It's just we don't get a lot of opportunities to have that kind of showcasing, but right now the university teams, as well as the Frontier Conference, we've got a lot of talented players
out
and
there.
The opportunities to try to keep specifically just that growth going on the female side, because our 2 Division I programs are the female programs at MSU and U of M.
That's incredible. And I think you touched on something too, that some folks come here to golf. They get exposed to Montana and our communities through this game. It brings them here, whether it's, because there's a tournament here, but they come and they get to recognize what an amazing place Montana is, all the way from the, what the landscape literally looks like in eastern Montana to western Montana. We're vast. We're a welcoming state that has a lot to offer.
No, it's a big driver, I think, on the tourism side, and it goes both ways, right? With membership and, the access, because everybody wants to come. I mean,
everybody wants a little piece of Montana.
Whitefish Lake, 36-hole facility up there. It's hard to get a tee time in the summer, as you can imagine. Glacier Park, all of that. People coming through for the lake. It is, it's great. It's a great problem for these course operators to have. But, I'd say business has never been better in golf, but that makes our work all the more important to be able to make sure that we can continue to provide opportunities and funding, because you have to, unfortunately, there's a lot of well-intentioned individuals, but at the end of the day, you need to pay for some things and
pay it forward or invest.
Driving range access, or some tee times, or some clubs, and all these different things. So it's our work is as important as it's ever been to make sure that
it's critical.
We don't fall behind because there's just so much of an influx of demand for getting out on the course.
Yeah, it's like making sure that foundation you don't outgrow, like the roots can support the growth of everything you're doing. Yeah, definitely. So that just kind of segues into, again, we're here. Montana Community Foundation is partnering with you guys for those donors that are interested in the Montana Endowment Tax Credit and whatever else they might be thinking of. And it's been a joy partnering with you. And you, of all people, know the power of what some of these planned gifts and bequests can do for an organization.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that's really, I think, inherent in the reason why I think we can and should be really successful with this endowment is the fact that golf does have that traditions and history and people wanting to, leave a mark and all these things. And the United States Golf Association, which is the, national governing body and kind of the end all be all when it comes to golf and amateur, as well as the U.S. Open, which is a month from now, for the men's, and then you'll have the women's and the seniors and all that, just like what we do.
Yeah.
They went through the process of endowing some of their championships so that they would always be able to pay for all of the costs associated with putting on these tournaments and sending players abroad if that was the case. And so they're going through this process. For us, it's wanting to make sure that like the scholarship, if we're, there's cyclicality in the history of golf in Montana around as well as the nation. It's like it might not be as popular 10 years from now. I kind of think it will be on the current trajectory, but you want to ensure that opportunities aren't reduced because of external situations.
You want to be able to control what you can. And this is a great way for those that are listening to invest and ensure the future of golf for Montana and do it in a really tax-wise way and work with you, which is a win-win-win.
What a better way though to leave a mark on the game that you really enjoy, and the fact that especially in some of these, I always just think about from my days at MCF and the aforementioned stops along the way, is a lot of times these golf courses play a critical role in the smaller communities in terms of they serve as both a restaurant option, they might be a wedding venue, they might be the meeting place for a lot of
community meetings and forums.
And I think that it's great that they're all, that golf is thriving. But again, it's wanting to make sure that we can ensure that the momentum today is continued throughout, and that all the people who are enjoying the recreation and the fellowship opportunities that occur with this very unique sport that, I get the pleasure of working in. Hopefully that more people will be energized and think about all the good things that they benefited from, maybe professionally, as well as, we want to get that cycle of highlighting these stories about the first scholarship winners and what are they doing now, because it's that whole point of hearing stories about people from where that look like you or from where you are born or your family. That makes it more believable to you. If you see
real when you see someone,
you see a great golfer like Katie Lewis, who's in Frenchtown, going to go play for the Grizz. That makes somebody who might be, not in a AA high school town think I could play for the Grizz too. Yeah.
Right. Or young girls are watching these who go before them, like you said, it paves so much of the way, and you start to identify and go, man, maybe I can golf in college, or that could be my way, because there are a lot of scholarships for women in golf. And sometimes, they go underutilized. So getting girls out and I think as a mom, I know the value of what sports can bring in terms of mental health, physical health, and then that holistic approach to living. It is good for the soul to be active and be outdoor.
Yeah,
and this checks the box. Golf really checks that box.
And I think a lot of the overlap of one thing you see a lot with our juniors is a lot of them are really, they take the reasons why they may be successful in golf playing, and they take it to the classroom and they use those same qualities to succeed there. And so you'll see, while it is not a criteria at all in our scholarship about your playing ability, there's a lot of our scholarship recipients who've been really successful players as well, because again, they're taking that mindset of preparation, hard work, showing up every day,
grit,
doing that. Being,
because there's books in golf, right?
There's a ton. It's one of the more like,
it's mental.
There's
a lot of
it's a challenge, and that's I think where a lot of the intrinsic benefits and why people come back to it is endlessly both frustrating, but also a great achievement when you are able
so
to
rewarding
have
when you
successes.
have. Which, speaking of, in your career, have you had a hole-in-one?
Never. And even furthermore, I've only witnessed one, which I find to be the more bizarre situation because I've just been around so much of it.
Only one. What course were you on?
I was actually in Texas in high school, and I was traveling with a friend, still lifelong friend, Chase Bass. So we were down there. His family was moving from Helena down to Texas for a new opportunity, and we were playing a course down there and didn't actually see it go in. We were traipsing around looking for it. And I made the terrible mistake that I still feel bad about and that he reminds me about when we play. It was, a sin for a hole-in-one. He was out in the bunker, and I was like, looked in the hole, and I found it, and I was like, you made it. And I grabbed it out, which you're not supposed to do.
Oh, okay.
I was excited for it.
And you're just like...
So I hope to see him make another one, and I'll leave it alone. Yeah.
So the culture around that is, or you let the person who hits the hole-in-one retreat.
I think it's such a unique situation for most people. It might be a once in a lifetime opportunity. And it was unintentional, but it was regretful.
It was with good intent. Oh, Nick, this has been fascinating. I've learned a lot about really the organization as a whole and your vision for the future. Is there anything that we didn't touch on here today that you'd like to speak to?
So you mentioned earlier, and we want to get to the point about like how do you get involved a little bit. And if it's okay, you got a minute. I'll start from the ground up on the junior side.
Right? How do you get involved?
Yeah. So first and foremost, everything starts at the local level, right? We've got 96 green grass facilities. It'll be more than that. We're incorporating some par 3 courses now, which is a great place again to start because you can learn at some of those shorter course facilities.
It's like you're not on the freeway. You like go in the parking lot.
Exactly. Excellent. I love that analogy. It's exactly where I would go with that. So PGA professionals, we just this past weekend it was the PGA Championship, and so club professionals who are your local connection, they're a great place to start as a resource for lessons. There's a thing called PGA Junior League, which is a opportunity to play in a team environment. They have jerseys, things like that. We like to promote just all the different things going on because it might be a little different. Your mileage may vary depending on where you're at. But Operation 36 is it's a teaching method that also starts from the green back. You learn the fundamentals around putting and chipping and moving back instead of just grabbing the driver right away and trying to start
whacking things.
So that's another kind of programmatic piece that exists. A lot of places are using that as a teaching route. We've got a grant program that has 10 years now. We're celebrating 10 years of granting funds across Montana. They are for kindergarten through 8th grade to introduce them to the game of golf, give a little instruction, and hopefully use that as kind of that gateway to them having the interest to then want to, get to a golf course where they can, again, I mentioned youth on course.
Right.
Another good option there.
Okay.
We are partnering more than ever with the Montana High School Association because, again, participation and, like you mentioned, with the opportunities on the women's side, it's just a great team game, and you've got a fall season for some of the high school and spring that's going on right now. It's just a great culture around that. So we're trying to be a resource to be able to talk about the local camps that are going on and the different things that happen. So MSGAgolf.org, that's our website, and we are continuing to develop. We'll be rolling out a new website before long with the real goal of being able to come to that and say, I don't know anything, and I can find mostly everything, and not have to, scavenge for my information.
Right.
One thing, again, that's a fun, just kind of anecdote is that one of our most successful Montanans as a golfer, also was a great student, academic, All-America type. Riggs Johnson from Libby, Montana. He's won the Australian Open, so he's playing professionally and also a champion on the European Tour.
Wow.
He's coming back to host a camp and then donating the proceeds of his time back to the MSGA so that our junior program will have some additional resources to do some more. And it's just ahead of our state junior event, which will be in Anaconda at Fairmont. And so that's just a heartwarming give it back.
Yeah, heartwarming, pay it back, reinvest. It's like those dividends are going back in to continue to.
And they're going to be thrilled to see he won our state amateur, played at Arizona State.
A lot of autographs happening
Absolutely.
there.
And just,
picture taking.
Again, seeing someone from a small community like Libby has an awesome 18-hole golf course, but that's a long way to everywhere.
Right. But you're like, this is a homegrown hero.
Yeah.
And
here he is.
Here he is.
On a huge stage. He'll be playing in the Open Championship across the pond in July. So, that's a cool situation, but again, that's a camp. May not work for everyone on the travel, but there's more and more of these junior tours and things, and we're just trying to again serve and connect the Montana golf community. And the more that we can, spread this word, and I think the fact that with the communication and the whole reason you're doing this format with podcasts is trying to continue to spread the message in different ways.
Absolutely. Because right now people will be driving and listening. They might be at their desk. They might have their earbuds on walking a course right now.
I do.
And that is just
keep it volume low in case that 4 call comes. You need to know.
Because that would be me. Because if I'm golfing, Nick, you don't want to be anywhere out there.
We want you in if you like it, we want you playing golf. It's again lifelong sport. It could be a great activity.
You may regret saying that, but no, it is something that it's there and it's an opportunity to engage with, and I'm excited, and I love that my girls are thinking about it, and I just love that you're leading an organization that's providing opportunities, right, for all stages of life, wherever you are, and literally wherever you are in the state, there is going to be a course, maybe more nearby, like in Pony. I know there's some driving that needs to be done. But we've got courses in Ennis and Three Forks, and I drive by Cottonwood all the time as I go into Bozeman, and you're seeing a lot of life happen out there, and a lot of good memories. So it's great to know that you're intentional in the design of what your organization's doing and bringing to the people.
Well, thank you. It's been great to be able to spotlight some of what we're doing and to have you as a partner as we try to evolve into this next, chapter of, a 108-year-old organization, and making sure that for another 108 years, there's these more opportunities.
After we're gone, that there's opportunities in perpetuity for all who love the game. And well, thank you for being on our show. It's Nick Dietzen with the Montana State Golf Association. We're honored to have had his time today. We hope to see you on a course. And that is a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Impact Under the Big Sky, Stories of Philanthropy in Montana, a podcast from the Montana Community Foundation. This has been a Social Flicks podcast studio production, and our podcast was written and produced by Rebecca Connors. A video version of this podcast is available on MCF's YouTube channel and on our website at mtcf.org. Stay connected with MCF by following @Montana Community Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Special thanks to our listeners and supporters for helping us share the stories that impact our community. Join us next time as we continue to explore the heart of philanthropy in Montana.